Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nevina Tsisovic, one of the moderators for today's webinar session. I would first like to thank everyone on behalf of myself and my team for joining us today, and especially our guest speakers for taking the time out of their busy schedules to join us. Just to introduce, our webinar today is organized by Goal Getters, a student-led public relation agency composed of Asia Pacific University's Master in Science and International Business Communication students. The purpose of this webinar is basically to discuss the professional challenges caused by gender discriminations in the workplace and how that affects each gender both professionally and socially. So today in this webinar, our speakers will share their experiences dealing with gender discriminations in real-life situations where they were affected by social and professional restrictions of their gender. They will furthermore discuss diverse ways to break gender stigma and restrictions to achieve equality in all aspects of the professional setting. I would just have to note that due to our limited time for the webinar, we will be allocating 8 minutes per question. So we really do hope that we manage to cover all the questions with this.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Imran Ali Abdou. I'm from Djibouti. Also, I would like to add that we have created an Instagram page where we cover the topic of gender inequality. We have also highlighted different issues such as gender pay gap, sexual harassment, maternity leave and paternity leave, and many more. We also appreciate if you guys could check our Instagram page, check our content to know more about our campaign, and please drop us a follow. Firstly, I would like to thank and greet all our speakers for giving us and joining us during this forum. And I would like also to ask our speaker to introduce themselves. Miss Grace, you have the floor. Would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks so much for having me here today. My name's Grace. I am the Chief of Staff at Swipey. We're a fintech company looking into expense management tools. So I'm in charge of the people function and also aligning the business with the people.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Grace. Now I would like to ask Mr. Silva to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Silva. I'm currently a senior copywriter at Grey. My job is to basically answer briefs, try to provide solutions for clients, and try to come up with lines that they can approve.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. Now I will pass it on to Ms. Azhar. Can you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for asking me to join this. My name is Madame Azhar Ali, and I'm working as a corporate relationship manager in CAC International Bank in Djibouti. So basically, I manage a portfolio of bank account of certain type of clients for now almost 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azhar. Lastly, we'll be hearing from Mr. Jan.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Jen. I'm the founder and CEO of Open Minds Resources. I've been an entrepreneur almost my entire life. I started my first company at the age of 17, started quite a number of companies around the world as well. In 2017, I was also recognized on the Forbes 30 Under 30 list. I made 3 TEDx speeches in my career as well. And Open Minds is a MarTech company based in Malaysia, Singapore, and Hong Kong. This year, we celebrate our 10th-year anniversary. So that's quite an interesting year for us.
Thank you, Mr. J. Okay, now that our viewers have met our speaker, we'll be starting with the first question of the forum. What is your outlook on gender equality in the workplace? Mr. Silva, would you care to share your thought on this topic?
It's definitely and unfortunately a bit skewed. It's changed over the last 10 years, I'd say, 10, 15 before I joined the industry, but you could still see like there are discrepancies in a lot of places. One gender sometimes has to fight harder than the other, but it's getting better. That's certainly happening. Active steps are being taken to ensure there's a very level working place for everybody. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. Mr. Azhar, any opinion on the topic?
Gender equality does exist, and it's been here for many decades. So gender equality is something we will be facing through, even though we're trying to solve it or trying to come with some solution. But gender equality, it's happening. It's not. It's something really real.
Thank you, Ms. Azhar. Mr. Jane, anything you would like to share with us?
Sure, I think gender equality is a very important topic that needs to be discussed, and I think that a lot of people have mentioned a lot about gender equality, but I think one thing we cannot forget is that equality, it's not just a numbers game, meaning it's not to say 50% of the workforce has to be male and female, but it's more of a mindset in acceptance towards a particular industry, because there are certain things we cannot change. For example, certain industries are really designed or in a way more acceptance towards a particular gender. And that's something that we need to accept. For example, if you're on the oil rig posted offshore, chances are, I'm not saying that females are not capable at all, right? But based on the job scope, the risks, and what is entailed out of them, it may favor the male gender a little bit more, maybe. So I would always say that gender equality cannot just be seen as, oh, you have more males or more females within an organization, therefore you tilt the balance. It cannot just be seen like that, but it's rather the mindset towards accepting that both genders are equal in being able to perform in the particular job that they are in.
Thank you, Mr. Jane. Let's now hear from Ms. Grace.
Thanks. I do actually agree with Jan as well, what he said. I do think it is not a numbers game when it comes to gender equality. I think it's about giving both genders and accepting equal choices, right? The choices they want to make. So I think it's more about choice equality in this case, regardless of gender, race, and sexuality as well. So and for me, the outlook, right, it is really about I think we're progressive. We're way more progressive than where we were before. In fact, there's a lot more organizations right now which are being run by the younger generation, your millennials, your Gen Zs, who are very, very socially conscious, and they are aware of gender inequality themes that would happen in the workplace. And I do believe that we are making a more conscious choice on how we run our organizations, giving equal opportunities to everyone, regardless of gender. And I think we are slowly moving towards a more progressive space and having more people being vocal about discrimination or inequality in the workplace.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. We'll be now moving on to the second question of the forum. Why do you feel gender inequality still exists despite all the fight against it? Mr. Jen, can you please share your thought on this?
I think this whole thing about inequality being in the workplace, again, really comes down to the mindset or the existing perception towards a certain industry, or rather in this case, certain employers and bosses. Now, it's an interesting debate over here because the employers or the people in managerial positions are the ones deciding who to hire, who to not hire, right? And if they themselves come from a background believing that a certain gender is more superior than the other gender, that is where exactly the problem is, right? Because if they are so ingrained culturally, they grew up maybe at home, they're influenced from a very young age. It may not be their fault, right? It could be their parents, it could be their grandparents. They grew up in an environment thinking that, oh, guys always be better than girls, or girls supposed to go into this job, guys supposed to do in that job. That is the environment they grew up in, and they will carry this belief into their work. So that is why earlier I was mentioning as well, if we were to really want to address this, few things needs to be looked at. One, is the change of perception towards the competency or the skills, as Grace have shared, when it comes to hiring somebody for the position. It becomes a question of, is this the right person for the position, rather than is this the right gender for this particular position. And number two, this is something that I always say, don't be offended. I think it also takes an entire generation to die off for a real change to happen. Because I think that certain cultural behavior is so deeply and rooted, right? And there's no wrong. I mean, you look at cultures around the world, you look at China, you look at Europe, right? Every business environment has legacy cultures that is built up of hundreds of years, right? Since medieval days, since the war days till today. We cannot expect in the past 5 to 10 years, people protesting, oh, let's do gender equality, let's have more women in the coding workspace, and then miraculously, 10 years wipe off hundreds of years of deep-rooted culture in that sense. So few things need to come hand in hand: education, the open-mindedness, and then perhaps even the passing of an entire generation.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jain. Ms. Azhar, would you kindly share your point of view?
Yes, definitely. It's gender equality is something that has been existing since ages, and it's cultural issues. It can be reflected through cultural issues for certain community. It does exist from many generations. It's not coming out recently. So it's habits and culture that we will have to change. And despite all the fight, despite all the enrollment for schools for girls, despite all the mindsets, it has been implemented in our culture, our community for many years. So it does exist because of that. It's a factor of culture. It's a factor of mindset, of perception again. And even though there is a big change in enrollment of school for girls, it's still here. It's still here. Certain family will still choose to keep the girls at home and let the men work. It started from the day wars happened back in the days. Men goes to war, women stay at home. So it's here. It's part of the creation of the world. So it still exists and it will continue to exist unless we take a new generation, as he said, to change that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azhar, for your point of view. Mr. Selva, we'd like to get your perspective on the situation.
Okay, personally, I have not seen gender inequality happening personally, only because my CEOs have all been women, my leaders have been women, my bosses. So, and honestly, this is going to be gender biased, but they are more effective. That's the truth. But I think a lot of the people who kind of create this gender inequality, right, is those who make it a problem. Most times it's never an issue of gender inequality until someone makes it an issue about that. We have a lot of times when juniors come up to us and they feel slighted. They might have personality differences or any kind of professional differences, right? And the red herring argument always comes down to, maybe it's because I'm a guy, that's why you all think like this, or maybe because I'm a girl, that's why I feel like that. It's most oftentimes not that. It's always more on a personal thing, like a personal tiff. So yeah, I feel like a lot of the people who, these places where they say that their issue most likely is because they make it one. If not, I think it's pretty fair and equal. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Selva. Ms. Grace, would you please share your opinion on this topic?
So there's a lot of fight, and I would say there's a lot of people communicate about gender inequality, right? And they say that it exists. There's a lot of talk about it. I think if you put it in a workplace context, and if you look at it in a unique situation, right? Those who actually face, any inequality in the workplaces, and sadly say a lot of them are women, they may not be aware of their own rights to speak up and sometimes they're simply afraid to do so, because when you bring a topic like this up, right? Not everyone is in a company where they get that privilege to bring a subject like this up to their leadership team, especially one that doesn't see a problem. If you go to a bigger corporation, especially, it doesn't get personal. In fact, it gets very factual. So show the data. Tell me, is there really a problem in the workforce, right? In the workplace where women are not given equal opportunity, or maybe men, certain things like, policies for men are not fair either, right? It's not about just the women too. So a lot of leadership may not see it that way, may not see a problem. And it's definitely a tough argument to raise. So instead, for the sake of, and sometimes for the sake of, keeping a job and making ends meet, right? It's easier to take a backseat than to risk losing a position at the organization that, that you really need. And so, like I said, it does become a privilege whether you get to bring a topic up like this or not, despite, all the talk about it, in the country.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. Moving on to the third question of the forum. Jordan Peterson, a Canadian clinical psychologist, claimed that gender equality might be achieved, but equal outcome could never. What are your thoughts on this? Let's hear again from Ms. Grace. Can you please share your thought?
Interesting you guys brought this up, because I had to also, figure out what that even means. What does it mean when equal outcomes could never be achieved, right? When he says that. What I interpreted is as when given equal opportunities, and it's very funny how men and women respond. Men will immediately say, "When can I start? Let's jump into it. Let's take it on." But usually, women will question if they can even do it to begin with, right? Am I capable? Do I have what it takes? Am I skilled for it? And I think going back to what Jan said earlier about risk, it seems like men are more inclined to take on these risks, and they are also, I think, just generation. We look at generation of jobs, right, and roles. Men take on more riskier roles as well than women, but it doesn't mean that we can't either. So when opportunity is given, I do feel that there needs to be equal amounts of empowerment given to both genders. The right amount of coaching needs to go into women and men, especially for women who are not so exposed to more risk-taking jobs, jobs where you need to call the shots and, be decisive, make important decisions and propose important strategies, right? I think we need to empower, women especially, to be able to do these kind of roles in the workplace. And this takes a lot of coaching, so that, they believe that they are also capable as well.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. I will now pass it on to Mr. John. My apologies.
Sure. To be honest, when I first saw this quote or this claim on screen, I can only agree to it 50%, right? So I agree to it in that sense because, yes, there'll be certain roles where there may have equal gender opportunities, but the outcomes could never, simply because of, again, echoing what Grace has also mentioned just now, right, on how different jobs may require a different make of a personality to take on, right? So we brought up things like the risk-taking. Maybe in construction, you really need that muscle strength. You need to spend hours under the hot sun. You need to climb up, 500 meters above ground to install a cable and all that. Now, are these things something that a woman cannot do? Not true. right? Both can do. But in terms of preference, in terms of the consideration of their own life, we may find that certain gender would say, yeah, sure, why not? You know, YOLO, let's go and do it. But there'll be another side of the gender say, maybe not. So in a situation like that, I would say that yes, there could be it will be a possibility that there's no equal outcome because certain gender will be more inclined to certain things. But if you bring it forward to this era where it's a lot more knowledge-based, it's office-based, it's content-based, then I think it's a different story because you're talking about accountants with the same background, with the similar experience. Why is it that one could not produce the same outcome as the other? When you talk about a YouTuber, a content creator, why is it that only a certain gender can do it? Is it true? Not true, right? So I think when we look at statements like that, we need to have the context to frame this as well. We need to ask ourselves, what is the real requirement to produce the outcome? Because chances are the requirement itself is not equal. The requirement may say, I need somebody that can be can stand the heat under the sun and maybe be away from the family for 6 months. That could already set it to be very different, right? Or they will say, oh, this particular job requires you to be very good with your hands for particular very specific industry. Then a certain gender may appeal better over here. So I think it comes down to the requirements that will determine whether the outcome could be equal or not.
Thank you, Mr. Jang. Ms. Azhar, any thought on what has been claimed by the Canadian clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson?
He was quite having his own way of thinking that could have been interfering to two different sessions. So equality of opportunity means that a person has the same opportunity, which I think certain company will focus on that. Means that they will be careful in recruiting to balance between staff men and staff women. That's the equality of opportunity. Certain company will give the opportunity, but the outcome is another different perspective, because here again they will evaluate that the women and the men are not the same as of the first of all the nature has created us in a certain way, women, and they have created men in a certain way. In fact, that gives a certain possibility for them to apply for certain job, while not for women, for men and women. That should not be seen as an inequality. It should be as a human being. It should be as a creation from the universe itself. Definitely, as a woman, as I'm enhancing my career, definitely I cannot do jobs that are more oriented for men who have strength and can endure certain kind of circumstances. So inequality for opportunity, it depends on the situation. And equality of outcome, again, it's up to the management or up to the company to evaluate fairly the performance, and this has to be fairly discussed. For instance, in my job, there is equality of opportunity, and for when it comes to equality of outcome, it does happen, because sometimes for the same position, women will be rewarded because they are more into management, while there are certain jobs that men are more rewarded because they are more into meeting up, going out, meeting clients. Anyway, so it's the contest. It's very, very important before judging the equality of the gender. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azhar. Can we please get your opinion, Mr. Selva?
Hey, yeah, I don't know. Agreeing with Jordan Peterson might come off very feisty, right? But I've watched his interview. What he said, I think he has a point, lah. Like in the sense that if you were to hire people from different genders or races, it's not necessarily going to give you the outcome you want. 2 years ago, our team was consisted of like 6 males and 2 females. Today we've got 7 females and there's only 2 guys like me and another. And the level output we've come up with is more or less the same. We've been killing it as much as we can. We've also come across obstacles. So I don't know if you can achieve gender equality, but I also don't believe that having gender equality helps you achieve equal outcome, for sure. I have to agree with him on this one. Yeah. Hope not
Thank
getting
you.
into any kind of trouble. Right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Silva. Moving on, we'll be going to the fourth question of the forum.
All right. Okay, so in your perspective, do you believe a person's gender has something to do with how far they can reach in the professional ladder compared to others from the opposite gender? Ms. Grace, would you like to start off first?
Okay, sure. Climbing the professional ladder. I think traditionally or more conventionally, executive positions especially, it has always been more of a boys' club, sad to say. Even if you give equal opportunities to both genders, I feel that they're compelled to behave and carry a persona to fit into a room, a board even, full of men at the top. And whether it is about being who's more aggressive or loud or having to do, the same things as they do, laugh at the same jokes, pick up golf, for example. Sometimes they have to do these things just to fit in and to have a sense of belonging, right? Especially when you're at the top. Women and even sometimes men, I feel that when it comes to climbing the professional ladder and sitting in the same room as a management team, there are certain instances where they have to compromise their own identities and their own feminine selves in order to climb that same ladder that has been set up by generations of male figures sitting at the top, right? The other barrier or hoop they have to sort of overcome is forms of microaggression, from trying to fit in a very male dominated leadership. In fact, there's so much masculine energy sometimes that you have to sort of compromise your own identity. You have to let your own your feminine self, you got to put it aside. So and when you have a female figure who takes charge and leads, for female to do so, unfortunately, there are instances where it is labeled as being very emotional, very opinionated, and instead the opposite gender would be deemed as a leader, being more decisive and what is reactive may come across being as passion. We get that a lot, right? And it's very unfortunate that when you're climbing the ladder and in workplaces, both men and women cannot bring their feminine and masculine selves into the roles they play in the workplace. So that's where I see a setback would be.
All right, thank you. Mr. Silva, would you like to add on?
Oh yeah, sure. So this is based off personal experiences, right? Just purely on observation. A lot of times, yeah, men and women get along well together, but there are instances where the woman is basically just being ambitious, driven. That triggers some kind of insecurity in the male, and he then takes it as, oh, she's a threat. This happens a lot. And when this form of what Grace was saying, microaggressions occur, because guys are also petty, just like everyone else. What happens is that the female then has to be more guarded, she has to be more defensive, because like I'm being me, but then there's somebody there who just doesn't like me being me. They cannot accept that I'm being there. So then these people also end up being, they double down, and sometimes doubling down rather than take a much more neutral approach also ruffles feathers and creates issues or steps on people's toes. At the same time, you have this going on, and I think that's where this issue, it ultimately stems down to ego lah. If people can just feel like, nobody's trying to steal your food and be very secure with yourself, generally both sides won't have any of these issues. One side feels like they're not being heard of, the other side feels like their thunder is being stolen. It's always like that, and it's interchangeable, by the way. It's just that if it boils down to, if you can leave your ego out of the door and don't feel like you have to be the alpha or omega or sigma, whatever alphabets they use nowadays, then everyone can get along really well lah. It just seems like it from personal experience. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you. Ms. Asa, would you like to answer next?
Yes, from his perspective, he is not totally wrong or not totally right as well, because it's something that even though we're trying to change it, we have also to accept that there is nothing wrong in being unequal. There is nothing wrong. The society has to accept and has to stop emphasizing on this inequality, and it has nothing with who is better than the other. We both have our part in this life. We both, for women, they will be caring children, they will be taking care of family, they will be taking care of a whole family. For men, they will provide the security, they will take care of their family as well, and they will ensure a stable life for the people around them. So inequality shouldn't be seen as a difference, but rather than two people completing each other, and that's it. It shouldn't create this whole global issues where law have been created accordingly and many things has been amended accordingly. No, it has to be just accepting both gender. That's why there is women and there is men. It has a purpose. We are different, definitely. We are not the same. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Asa. Mr. Jen, if you would like to answer the question as well.
I think a lot has been said with my fellow panelists. They've covered many, many good grounds. But I particularly love what Selva just talked about, right? Because he talked about how within the environment, and that's actually where my answer comes from as well. Because I feel that within an organizational perspective, it really comes down to what does the environment promote and what does the environment inspire. Because likewise, for both male or female, right? If you to go into an organization that is so-called heavily dominated by female, it will be different, right? Like Silva's company, right? You said most of your management and top leaderships are women, which is great. And if you go into a company in which the environment is 100% masculinity, then the environment will turn out to be different as well. So the point I'm trying to make is that what influences how or which gender is able to make it up the professional ladder really still comes down to a very intentional approach of an organization. It comes down to the leadership team, it comes down to the management team on how they manage KPIs, how they value each of the employees that they have, what are the different characteristics that will promote or demote, and that has to be run clearly and impartial to both the male and the female. So I think it's less more of because you are male or female, therefore you have a glass ceiling. It's more of organizational wise, what is valuable to you? What are you promoting in the environment? And that is the recipe to cause some of these things that we've been talking about.
All right, nice. Thank you, Mr. Jen. Now we will move on to our next question. What do you think are the barriers and setbacks each gender faces in a workplace? Mr. Salva, would you like to go first?
Oh, yeah, sure. I think it's almost like a follow through of the previous answer, right? Um, Women generally have this feeling, and it's true that they have to work harder, twice as smart, just to get the same opportunity. Whether or not that's the reality, the mindset is almost also like that because it's a male-dominated industry in a lot of cases. Um, it's unfortunate, it's like because there are these people who no longer like maybe the action of one person is enough to stain how the rest might see it. That's for them. And then I think for some men is they think they have it easy. They think it's going to be a theme park ride. I'm okay with the bros, everything will be fine. Um, both of these happens and both also kind of maybe needs to be taken away. I think the barrier is having people to check their own egos. That's like the hardest thing to do in any because it's easy to tell someone not to take it personally. The moment you say that, it's when they take it very personally. Hey, don't take it personally, bro. And then it's like, what are you talking about me? And that's the same thing with work, lah. A lot of times, the idea or concept of keeping it professional and strictly work and switching off after 6 p.m. very hard for a lot of people to do because they've put in their blood and sweat and tears. It's just kind of creating that mindset and having that people kind of understand that okay, you're checking your ego out of the door. You're not going to everything is just purely work. Nothing else is going to impact how I behave or whatever. This can really break down all these barriers and setbacks that different genders face. That's my opinion. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you for that. Mr. Jan, would you like to give us your opinion?
Yeah, I think one of the barriers, I think it was also briefly discussed earlier, I think it comes from both genders having this inferiority complex. If you're a guy, you see a bunch of ladies doing far better than you, then you feel like, oh no, I kind of need to catch up. And if you are a bunch of guys and then a lady watches from the outside, you'd say, oh, they are so cliquish, I'm not part of their group. And once that is established and when they feel insecure, I think this is what Silva was mentioning earlier as well, I think that is where the barrier and the setback is formed, either really tangibly or even psychologically. Because then you go into a defensive mode. You start watching everything you need to say. You need to put double, triple the effort. You need to showcase more. You need to push yourself out there. But it all comes down to just one word, right? Is insecurity. Because of how the make of the organization is, right? So it's therefore then not just a certain gender's role to play to have this play out. That is why I also like actually what Ms. Asa was talking about just now, right? Where both genders have their own part to play. I think that is also very true, which also means that when we approach work, it needs to be then more factual. It needs to be a lot more objective, solving the whatever business problem that's in the place, rather than trying to play the power of I'm more secure than you. In fact, right, this entire topic does not just fall on gender equality. It actually also falls into a lot of other aspects that breeds negative politics within an organization, right? That's where people start backstabbing each other. Oh, this guy is like that. Oh, she is like that. That's a stem of many things. So I think it's a change where we need to approach work and our insecurities separately and not bring it to affect the dynamics that's happening within the workplace.
Nice. Thank you so much, Mr. Jen. Ms. Asha, would you like to tell us your opinion next?
Definitely that there is a barrier and step backs for each gender. One of them for the women is the maternity leave is a big change in a woman's life, and it affects her spiritually, mentally, physically. So we are not equal in this point because a man and a woman working in the same place, the moment a woman will take for a leave, for a maternity leave, it will definitely be different for her when she will be back. She will be facing sleepless nights. She will be facing many other factors that will make her outcome maybe unfairly different from the men. So this is one of the barrier and step backs that the gender will face. The second one will be maybe men's are good in very practical works, while women's are better in other type of work. Again, this is barriers, but each gender has their part. But in a professional way, in a workplace, definitely women cannot be the same as an outcome. Opportunity could be the same. There is no problem, because we will all study the same, we will all learn the same, but the outcome definitely different, because we women give birth, get family, get kids, get. Women themselves have their own parts, so it cannot be the same outcome, and this can be considered as a barrier for a woman to be equally with the men. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Aska, for your input. Ms. Grace, would you like to answer what do you think are the barriers and setbacks for each gender?
I think for coming from a HR space as well, one of the barriers, unfortunately, is also leadership. The leadership team has to be aware and mindful of what the opportunities are given. The types of opportunities are given to both men and women in the workplace, but also like what Ms. Asha said earlier about policies as well. Given equal policies that would complement the choices in a man or woman's life, right? And whether it's maternity leave to support a mom who wants to, support a woman who wants to be a mom, or even a longer paternity leave, because men love being dads as well, and I feel that they should have the time to do that too. So having a leadership team that doesn't support personal choices becomes a setback and becomes a barrier for any man or woman to fulfill their roles in not just the organization, but in their personal lives as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Ms. Grace. We will move on to our final question that we as a team have prepared. The sixth question would be, what are your efforts, be it current and past, in creating a positive impact on gender equality in your workplace? Ms. Asha, would you like to go first?
Yes. When I have been nominated as a relationship manager, corporate relationship manager, means that I was given a portfolio of bank accounts of VIP clients, and I had to manage them accordingly. I was the first girl to do this job in my working environment. So I have shown up that despite the fact that this job was only led by men, there is an opportunity for women to do the same and even better. So I did my part. I increased my portfolio double. I managed client very well. I reached a point where I've make the bank earn a lot of money and a lot of good deals. So there is certain job where women and men can compete fairly, despite the fact that I'm a mother of two boys and I was interrupted in between to go for maternity leave. And recently we have been given 6-month maternity leave. So you imagine the gap that happened to me within those 6 months. But then I had to come back and pretend nothing happened and move on with no complaint, no leave in between, because more than those 6 months, it will be heavy to take more days. So in this particular point, I have stand my ground to say that yet I can be at the same level of a man in this particular position. Definitely, I still believe we are not the same. This is my deep thought. We are not the same, but then there is still opportunity for women to prove themselves and to compete. No matter how different we are, it's a matter of skills, management, and patience. This is the most important word. It's not. We are not here to just to prove something. I did my job not to prove that the men before me were not doing well. No, I did it with patience, and the outcome was great. So that's it. Thank you.
Nice, thank you. Ms. Grace, can we hear from you now?
In terms of efforts, I guess as someone in the people function, obviously making sure setting the right policies for the organization, make it for both paternity and maternity leave, giving them enough time away. One thing that came out of it was for a mother, it takes time to heal, especially after postpartum, right? During postpartum, where they have to heal after giving birth, and both emotionally, mentally, and physically. For father as well, a new father, right? Having a child for the first time is definitely daunting, but also they probably wouldn't need a stretch of 1 month to sort of heal from physically. What I did before was, we sort of broke the days up, right? So they don't take 1 month as a, paternity leave as a stretch, but instead giving them more leaves so that they can, take time to, be with their spouse when their spouse needs them, or even things like children, like, bringing their child for checkups. You need to take odd days, down the line throughout the entire year to go for all these checkups. So being able to give them the flexibility to take time off is an equality I see for the guy. But also in terms of hiring as well, I'm not sure whether you guys have experienced it, but there's a lot of unconscious bias when it comes to hiring sometimes, because unconsciously you would try to sort of associate a role with a gender. So when you think of developers, you think like, oh, because there's so many male developers, right? But you try to, find and encourage more female developers to join a team. So I think one of the achievements I've done in the past was hiring, making sure they are equal men and women on what would usually be a male-dominated team. But on a personal level, seeing how sometimes in a boardroom full of men, and when you have a leader one single leader who's female, and you as an outsider, sometimes you do notice that, okay, there is some bit of microaggression, sometimes unfair treatment to someone that you look up to, a female figure in a room, on the management table, right? So being able to speak up in the past was very empowering. It might not lead to an outcome that, an ideal outcome, but I think some of the efforts that that I've done in the past, and all of us here we need to do today, is being able to point out and voice out any inequalities that you see in the workplace, and raising that kind of awareness, because I think a lot of people don't know when they are crossing the line.
Thank you, Ms. Grace. Mr. Jan, would you like to answer this question as well?
Yeah, I think by now everybody should see me as the environment guy, right? Because I kept talking about environment and environment and environment. And I really believe in that because I've seen how environment played a very, very vital role in our growth at Open Minds in the past decade. What we have done from the very beginning is to put together a 100-page book depicting what Open Minds as a company should be run like. Within it outlines all our values, outlines all the benefits, outlines how you as a person can be promoted, what are the things that we as a company find valuable, and this is given to every newcomer, guy or girl, intern or full-time or part-time, so that you understand how we work. And one of the benefits of us doing that is to realize that this allows very open conversations to take place. It wouldn't be something surprising to see somebody suddenly being promoted. Why? Well, he or she has fulfilled certain things that is clearly outlined within the open book. And when that happens, not only conversations becomes very transparent, it's something where everybody commonly can look forward to. So it's not an opportunity to be biased to say, oh yeah, I know he did it better and all that, because everything is clearly outlined in these 100 pages of what we call the open book. Within it as well, describe opportunities on how, if you would like, all our values like transparency, how we value togetherness, how we value the way you work, how you take on projects, all that is detailedly put down in this particular book, including benefits, right? So when we look at benefits, we also make it very clear that the benefits that we're going to offer has only one objective, is to help our team members, male or female, live a better life. So it was designed from a perspective of what does a human being need to have a better life. So we thought about, of course, the more tangible things that we have a budget for you to go on your personal holidays, a budget for you to buy sporting materials, buy reading materials, pick up external class. We have 28 categories of benefits, by the way, including benefits that's given to people that are about to have kids. Even if you're a guy or girl, if you're about to have your baby, we give you money because you are going to have a baby. And for female, of course, you have to go through a maternity, but as a guy, you also get paternity, because we found that, hey, to live a quality life, you need to spend time with your wife. This is the time she needs you the most. So you don't go on maternity, but you take paternity. It's a change of words, actually, but we want you to be there. Not only that, we pay for daycare when they're old enough. And all this is put in place so that they can come back and have that seamless interaction back with the team again, because we take care of their lives. So that is why when I talk about environment, right, we talk about how policies and values and culture is set in place to mitigate conversations surrounding the potential of biasness. In the past 10 years, we have promoted 2 of our staff to CEO position of subsidiary companies. And guess what? Both of them are female. One became the CEO of a Hong Kong office. One became a CEO of our education subsidiary arm. And they did it not because of bias. They did it because, well, they scored according to what the open book has outlined. And everybody saw that. And everybody celebrates with that achievement rather than saying, hey, why she can, I cannot. So that is why I think if there are listeners here and they're looking to form their own company, to start something on their own, don't stinge on setting the culture right from day one. You'll be surprised to see how this plays out throughout your career as an entrepreneur.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jan, for your input. Mr. Salva, would you like to finish off and close down our section, our questions?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, guys, what you all are doing is really great, and you guys are doing it on a very organizational level. For me, I'm only able to help as much as I can in what I do, like my capacity. So the thing that I know I've done and I'm very happy about is the 2 juniors we have, Sarah and Bao. They're very ambitious, driven women, very smart, and they've shared to me their pains that they had to go through being a woman in this industry. So as a fellow colleague, all I can do is to provide space to make them feel comfortable and support, make them feel encouraged. Sometimes they're very willing to do a lot of things, but they feel like, oh, it's not my place to talk, it's not my place, it's a room full of guys. It's just letting them know, like, little stuff like, dude, feel free to talk, say whatever you want to say, no one can say anything to you. And just kind of minor small support forms that can really help them. And then when they grow to become leaders, which they will eventually do, they will also set the same standards for the guys coming after that lah. I can't be happier to say, like, because I'm leaving my agency soon to another place, and I can't be more happier to have these two really intelligent women actually take over and run the show. I think it's just giving them space and support. They know how to run the world. Just give them that space, and that's about it lah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Selva. All right, so actually we have wrapped up with our questions, and we want to thank all the speakers. Like I'm pretty sure all of viewers at home really enjoyed hearing your input. We will ask a few questions from the comment section, but I think because we only have a few minutes left, we will just ask each speaker individually a different question. So we will only hear one input for each question. I would like to start off with the first question, a question from Lilietta San, asking, is gender equality a concern for men? Is there anybody who would like to answer this, or do you want me to? Maybe Mr. Salva, you can.
Okay. I was gonna ask you, maybe pick somebody, like at random, but thanks.
We'll go with you.
It's a concern for insecure men, big time concern. It's more worse than telling that their banana is but like, it's because this is a massive form of insecurity for them. They take it as oh, you're judging someone based off their gender. They feel slighted, they feel pushed away. But not for men, but for insecure men, which may not be men anyways, right? Because if you're very insecure, then you're not doing good for us lah. Yeah.
Nice, thank you so much. Now Imran will take over and ask the second question to one of our speakers.
I have a question. Okay, we pick a question. Do you believe that when the baby boomer generation pass and millennials become the eldest living generation, it will change anything? Maybe we can hear from Miss Azhar.
As I said, we have to stop trying to fix this gender equality, because no matter how many generations will come, no matter how many things will change, we are different, and it's time to accept it. It doesn't mean we have to create inequality, but we have to accept our differences in order to fit in this society. And that's it.
Thank you, Ms. Azhar.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have a question from Imtiaz Sajid Bhai. What support? Based on your experience, when both genders have similar skills and performances, what factor do you think it is that affects the promotion of the other? So you have a man and female, and they both have the same performances and skills. So what could actually distinguish between who gets the promotion? Mr. Jan, would you like to answer this?
Well, if it's for me to answer based on my experience, it's either both get the promotion because they've both met the qualification, or really go down into the actual details of the performance itself. Because I know the question is very generic. All you are saying is similar skills and similar performances, but in reality, a performance may vary, right? So what we will probably look at is, in the area that you perform, which one has more of a direct contribution of what is required of the workplace. Because one may perform better in one area, one may perform in another area, that may impact it. But in most of my experience, we promote both. There's no need to fight, no need to consider. If both deserves it, based on, like I mentioned, the open book, the environment we've created, both gets rewarded.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jen. And now for our final question from our viewer. They would like to know if you believe, as many, that gender equality is just a feminist movement. If Ms. Grace could answer this one.
Sorry, can you repeat that question again?
They asked, I would like to know if you believe, as many, that gender equality is just a feminist movement.
Sure. I mean, I don't really want to go into the topic of feminism at this stage because it would take another 1 hour probably. Feminism is, thanks for the question here. I don't really want to go into the topic of feminism, to be honest. A good question, but I think gender equality at the core of it's really about giving equal opportunities and also recognizing the choices of both men and women, and whether it's in the workplace or in their own lives as well. Feminism is a whole nother topic, and I don't see it being exactly the same.
Understood. Understood. Thank you so much for your input. Okay, so I think we have actually reached the end of our webinar. We would like to sincerely thank all the viewers at home who have taken the time out today to come and join us, and especially our speakers. I know you guys have a busy schedule ahead, and we really appreciate that you guys took the time out from today to join us and contribute to this conversation. I'm pretty sure we all enjoyed having this. We would also like to thank our other team members who are behind the scenes helping out, and our lecturer, Miss Leila, for helping us get through this and help us set everything up. And also I would like to add that if you guys haven't checked out our Instagram page yet and the content we've been covering, please do drop us a follow, and we hope that we can all together spread awareness on this issue. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Best of luck.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.